Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
Don't you just love Snow Wars? I love it. I love Star Wars in a snowy, icy environment. It's my favorite. I think it's because it just harkens back to those snow days when I was a kid and you get the day off, you take your action figures, you go in the backyard and build little forts and things. And inevitably, I would lose one and I would find it later in the spring when all the snow thawed. But yeah, I'm thinking about all the snow planets that we've had. And I know there's a lot in the EU, but I'm thinking about the ones we've seen. Obviously, Hoth, the most famous. Ilum we've seen in Clone Wars. Maldo Kreese from Mandalorian. And he and Grogu, and they find the little spiders and the big spider. And then, of course, this one, Barton 4, which is the second time we've been on this planet here in the Bad Batch. So I like Snow Wars. But one thing I like more than Snow Wars, and that is Star Wars. So happy to be back with you here on Rebel Force Radio's Bad Batch After Show. So if you want to get down and dirty with the Batch, this is the place. We go under the hood. We dissect. We disseminate. We interpret. We just plain make up things if we have to make sense of it all. But so glad to have you all with us. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us live, that's great. If you're listening on delayed podcast, we appreciate that too. But we also love having you here live because you can participate in the chat. You can give us a call. We'll put the phone number up later. And that's really what makes these shows so special are the phone calls. The phone calls really make it different and unique here at Rebel Force Radio. Something else that makes it all the more special is this guy. And I'm talking about my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Snow Wars, nothing but Snow Wars. We love those Snow Wars. Damn it, it's cold. Hey. Yeah, I just came up with that right on the fly. Can you believe it? Wow. Yeah, Lennon and McCartney got nothing on me. Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Glad to be back for more Bad Batch. The Return. We've returned. The Bad Batch has returned. The name of the title is The Return. So let's return to some quality Star Wars conversation tonight on RFR, the Bad Batch After Show.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get to the tail of the tape here. As Jimmy said, the name of this episode is The Return, and directed by Nate Villanueva, written by Amanda Rose Munoz, and, of course, that story editor consistently throughout the series, Matt Miknovitz. This one clocks in at about 25 minutes exactly, minus the end credits, and it premiered, for those of you listening to this in the future, March 6th, 2024. And Jim, I will say that this, I love spending time with the Batch, as you know, but this did seem kind of going back to the model of Bad Batch. We've got MacGuffins, we got monsters, but there is a clear-ish mission at this point. There certainly was in this episode. They had to find an Imperial terminal so that they could hook it up to Nala Se's data pad and get clues, more clues as to what's going on Mount Tantiss. But yet, they still don't have a location. So I'm just wondering, how many more licks of the Tootsie Pop do we need to get to the Chewy Center that is the location for Mount Tantiss? But we learned a lot of interesting things along the way. Great character stuff, so I don't want to take that away from it either.
I think it's a little more fulfilling having these missions of the week sort of things reappear in the Bad Batch in season 3, because it all sort of leads to the end game. Before, we were getting those missions for Sid, which were just to earn some scratch or to pay her back for something that she claimed they owed her and stuff. And like, at the end of the day, who cares about Sid? I think we're a little more motivated by the story when it's focused around things like Project Necromancer, Mount Tantiss. This Hemlock character is a great character too. I don't like spending time away from him. And I think this is the first episode of the season where we didn't have any Hemlock in the mix. So I definitely did find myself missing him. And was kind of a character study again for Crosshair, who tends to get those types of episodes. I don't feel like they went deep enough in this one, though. I mean, there was some discussion between Hunter and Crosshair, which has been kind of overdue, but it didn't really get too deep. However, as we'll talk about things that get revealed
Right.
by Crosshair to Hunter, so we sort of get an idea where Crosshair's head is at. But the most interesting thing, I think, was at the end of the episode where he did express regret for some of the things he did in the service of the Empire. So he definitely is dealing with remorse. And I think that makes him a more compelling character. He's more than just a pre-programmed soldier of war who happens to be a damn good shot. He actually does have morals and feelings and things of that nature. So I hope they open up that just a little more than they did in this episode, because I felt like they could have gone a little deeper in that department, and they really didn't.
Yeah, there is some good dialogue, but I think they've left the door open for more. I hope there's going to be more. I'd like to know a little bit more about the things that he did that's keeping him up at night. I'd love to see a flashback episode or two, maybe, just to kind of show us what he's mourning. Now, we do know he was on those missions. There were innocent villagers that were wiped out. I can't think of the name of the planet, but that was something that he was doing in service of the Empire. So those things are keeping him up. He's obviously still very much tore up about Mayday, his colleague there on Barton 4 that died.
Look at you. You did a little refreshment of that season 2 episode. The name of that episode, The Outpost. Yeah, The Outpost.
Yeah.
I did too. I've been steeped in Bad Batch for the last couple of hours leading up to this show, because like you, I wanted to see how it connected to that season 2 episode, what we left behind there, and most importantly, what really was the reason for Crosshair killing that Imperial lieutenant that got him in all this hot water in the first place.
Right.
And again, it shows more of a moral center to Crosshair when you realize he killed that Lieutenant Nolan. He killed him because the lieutenant was treating the clones like pieces of equipment, and he refused Mayday medical assistance when they came in from the cold, and he was clearly dealing with hypothermia, and he died. And so Crosshair firmly laid that blame at the feet of
eye for an eye there
Nolan.
with Crosshair.
Yeah, and then he bounced Lieutenant Nolan from the scene. Lieutenant Nolan was a despicable kind of character who was very entitled and lacked experience. And
the other thing that's interesting about his choice in that moment, in that season 2 episode, is how he gives himself up. Now you could say, well, he's there was no chance of escape. Well, maybe, it is Crosshair. He is a Bad Batcher. Not saying he could have escaped, but the fact that he just kind of collapsed and gave himself up, I think it was almost like that was a really, really big moment, turning point for him and his character. Something was in him was dying, collapsing. Perhaps it was that evil part of him, or that part of him that was loyal to the Empire. And it was almost like when he gave himself up, it was like he deserved it. He deserved to be imprisoned, not by the Imperials necessarily, but for the things that he did for them. Like I don't think he believes that he deserves forgiveness or redemption. I think he's striving for it, but something's going to happen. And this episode, I think, leads him in that direction, where perhaps he'll forgive himself. But this is all about trust, broken trust, what it takes to heal, and in this case, both parties need to heal. But this, Jim, this opening scene here with Omega and Crosshair as he's practicing his sharpshooting skills with AZ, this was probably the most overt reference to his hand that we've seen. There was the close-up on the hand. We saw the tremors, and Omega goes so far as to say, I'm sure AZ could look at that for you.
Yeah.
So they're really doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this. This is a thing. This isn't just a little bit of character business. This is definitely a thing, but we don't know what that thing is.
Yeah, we don't know. We're 5 episodes into this thing, and every episode there's some reference to Crosshair's shaky hand.
Right.
And we have no setup for it. And I've seen a lot of speculation online. That his shaky hand could be coming from the experimentation that was going on him and the other clones at Mount Tantiss. It could be frostbite or hypothermia. I've kind of ruled that one out because when in the episode Tipping Point, which followed the Outpost last season, Crosshair escapes from the cell they're holding him in. He stuns Emery and takes her access card and busts out of there, and he gets to a communication center, and that's when he sends the message out to the Bad Batch.
Right.
They flood that communication center with this toxic gas. But before I get that far, as he's escaping from the cell he was in, he comes around the corner and he shoots 2 clone troopers, like boom, boom. And so it's clear that he still has his sharpshooting ability despite the frostbite or hypothermia or whatever. So I've ruled that out. But the other ones we have is some people say PTSD. His hand shaking because PTSD. He's a clone trooper. He's genetically engineered to be a warrior. I don't know if maybe we've seen some examples of PTSD in the past with these troopers, but I don't buy it with Crosshair. Some people say it's because they draw blood out of his hand constantly to run tests on him at Mount Tantiss. I don't buy that. Or we've noted that Hemlock is always rubbing his hand, and it's the same right hand that Crosshair is dealing issues with too. Crosshair's right hand is also giving him problems.
Mm-hmm.
So but I can't find any setup for this except one moment in season 2 in the episode Tipping Point, when they flood that communication center with the toxic gas. When Crosshair is in there sending a message of warning out to the Bad Batch, Hemlock walks in and he doesn't have a mask on. He doesn't have a gas mask. The place is filled with toxic gas, and he takes a deep breath of it. And he reveals he developed the toxic gas himself. And while developing it, he developed an immunity to the gas. But that's the only thing that Crosshair and Hemlock were both exposed to is this toxic gas. So maybe that has some sort of effect on the nervous center or something. And Hemlock deals with problems with his right hand, just like Crosshair does.
Wow,
that's my only guess.
That's some good detective work. That's a great theory because it is a common thing that they both share.
Yeah.
Again, everybody in the chat, people emailing us are saying that it's some sort of perhaps mental, or physical manifestation of a mental condition, whether it be PTSD. Yeah. I don't know.
There's no setup for that. There's nothing introducing that. And they've been milking it for 5 episodes at this point. So now I'm at the level of pure frustration because it needs to be explained by this point. Too many fans are simply, and I see it in the chat, too many fans are just simply rolling with this non-explanation, and they're good with it. I don't think so. We've talked about this before. These characters, they need to earn things. Achievements and setbacks. They have to earn it. It's the just because form of Star Wars fill-in-the-blank storytelling that's becoming a hallmark of the Dave Filoni gang. And I think people are getting used to it. You can't have big gaping holes like that. So I'm looking very closely and expecting some kind of payoff with this thing. Well, it has to come to play. 5 episodes, and they keep referring to the hand.
Moni G in the chat. This is my theory as well. I was thinking about the super boosting his chip before he got it out in first season. They were cranking him all the way up. And
oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So it's a possibility. I think that
wouldn't the lameness have revealed itself much earlier than now?
Yeah, you would think. You would think. Yeah, I mean, I don't have necessarily the answer, but that was the one that my mind went to. That one. I was thinking that was probably it. But I'm with you. I don't enjoy the, like you said, they've got to earn it, and some of this stuff has to be on screen in order for it to have weight. In my opinion, it can't be just us applying some of our real world experiences with things like PTSD to this. I mean, it's fine. It's a interesting explanation, I suppose, but to like settle on it and be like, why are you looking any further than this? It has to be this, when the writers haven't even really tipped us off, unless there are other clues that we've missed. But I think it has to be more than just. It has to have something to do with his future. This is all about this is telegraphing something that's coming. This is not premonition. What's the word I'm looking for? But this is laying the groundwork. Yeah. Foreshadowing. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Some people are saying Crosshair is just overthinking it. That's not exactly my idea of quality drama or storytelling, but that's what somebody said. Someone else said it's psychosomatic. So once he finally forgives himself, then physically he'll come back together. No, I don't buy that one either.
Yeah.
I don't buy that one either. I think that if they're going to keep, just banging away at this thing, they really need to give us at least some kind of background. And I like the idea of it being tied to Hemlock somehow, because he keeps rubbing his hand too. And he's got the glove on the one hand. There has to be a purpose for that. And I'll roll with it.
I mean, what have we seen in Star Wars when it comes to gloved hands? Most of the time it implies a prosthetic.
Yes. Some people are checking in. I'm an RN and, but I mean, none of this means anything in the world of the Bad Batch.
Right. That's the point. That's the point.
And also, I mean, storytelling has to fall. The dominoes have to fall a certain way. And I just fear that too much of the audience has gotten used to shoddy storytelling that we've been getting delivered. And they're used to it now. And they're good with it. So I don't know. Yeah. I demand a little bit more. Yeah. I demand a little more clarity. There's too much room for interpretation right now. And if they're going to make us wait, the payoff better be damn good and be logical and make sense in the big picture.
I like what Paul Kurtz is saying here. He's losing the only skill he had. And that's a good point. That is definitely something that's going to massively impact his character. It's like if Hunter can't track, if Wrecker isn't strong, if Tech isn't, tech, but you know what I'm saying. They all have their thing. It's a superhero who's losing his or her power. And that's what's going on with Crosshair in this instance.
Well, give us a purpose. Give us a reason. Give us a reason why. That's all I want.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. The other one that was sort of interesting at the top of the episode was this interaction where they reveal that they had, at some point after the last episode, had taken his rifle away and only had just given it back to him. So that implies some time has elapsed and there has been maybe some more trust earned to where he was given his rifle. And it's Hunter, of course, who is the most distrustful of Crosshair. He says, not sure it was a good idea to give Crosshair back his rifle. And there's Wrecker saying, well, Omega trusts him, and that is good enough for me. So, Omega has been with him throughout all of this. She's seen opportunities that he had to ditch her, to leave her, to betray her, and he didn't. So Omega's trust in this case, I don't think is just naive, Pollyannish thinking of a kid. I think that there's real reason to trust Crosshair. Last week, you might have been able to convince me that possibly this character was going to go backwards, but I think after this week, I believe that he's there to stay, at least in terms of his loyalty to the Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah. I believe that as well. They've let him hang out this long, so I
Right.
don't think he's going anywhere. I think that the ice is beginning to melt, and no, that's not a reference to any snow planets in Star Wars.
The other thing that is revealed is that this impairment with his hand is significant. AZ is tracking his shots and says that he's at 53%, well below your average. So not even just below your best, below average. So you could use this as a way of thinking that Crosshair himself is at about 53% of the old Crosshair. So he is deteriorating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some people are saying Lou Gehrig's disease. I mean, it just cracks me up, I mean, there's a million different interpretations.
Wouldn't it be something like Cy Snoodle's disease, Max Rebo disease? Like, I don't think there's a Lou Gehrig in
ALS.
Galaxy far away. Yeah, I know, but I mean, yeah.
I'm the one who called it that. Baseball season's right around the corner. It's spring training right now. Sorry if my mind is on the game a little bit.
The little reference, passing reference to tech, as they realize that they need to get this data pad unlocked, they're thinking, oh, if only tech was here, this would be no problem. And then that's Crosshair's open. His open is, well, I know a facility. He's got understaffed, shouldn't be a problem. So he's going to be able to come in and potentially save the day. And of course, that sets all of the action into place.
He was only revealing that information because he wanted to impress Echo. That's what Crosshair lives for. As soon as Echo showed up, he said hi to everyone, and then Crosshair says, "No hug for me."
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, he's totally trolling Echo. I love it.
Yeah, Echo says, depends on how good your intel is. And
right.
So Crosshair's like, well, I better not sit on this one. I want Echo to hug me sometime,
Well, and the other thing too is they're back on Pabu at the top of the episode. Yes. So as we had predicted last week that they would find themselves in Pabu, and Pabu is still just as glorious as it was when we last left it at the end of season 2. And it's such a contrast at the beginning of this ep as Omega is waking up and the sun is shining on her, so different from the drip, drip, drip of her room/cell on Mount Tantiss. So great contrast. I think what we're supposed to take away is, in some ways, they've got everything that you would think that they need. They've got a beautiful place to stay. They're reunited, and yet they're being pulled back into the action. Omega is not going to just be content to live there and go to school, and she wants to go in and she wants to help her brothers and free her brothers.
I thought it was an interesting little bit that could have gone right by everyone because it's not a reveal or anything, but just the way they continue building mystery about Project Necromancer, with Omega revealing she never got to see what was in the Necromancer vault in Mount Tantiss.
Yeah.
And she also reveals not even Emery was allowed to go in there. So that is good. That's a good way to build mystery along the way. So when we finally do get the payoff of what's actually in that vault, it'll be really big. You hope. And I just found it interesting that not even Emery has been allowed to go in there. And Emery seems like she has lots of access.
Yeah, that's a great one. I totally missed that. And I'm looking at the lines right now. Yeah, I totally missed that about Emery not being able to go into the vault. That's huge. That's, I think, a huge reveal there, because it shows that she is maybe not as free as others, or maybe not that, but maybe it's if she saw that Nala Se was actually a prisoner to the extent that she is, that could potentially, she's a scientist. Emery is a scientist, and not necessarily a Imperial idealist. She doesn't wear the Imperial uniform. She wears the uniform of the scientist. So it may be that Hemlock can't show all of his cards, or these people are going to start to perhaps mutiny. You know, they have to believe, I think, in the case of someone like Emery, that some of this is for a good reason. They may not know. In fact, I'm sure they don't know exactly why they're doing this. Although, again, it's one of those things where I would love it if there is some sort of smokescreen for people like Emery. I'd love to know what that is. I'd love to know what they think they're working on when we know the reality of what they're working on is Necromancer. So if you have some thoughts about that or any of the things that we're laying out for you, please do give us a call. The number.
Emery certainly. Oh, you're giving a number?
I was going to give.
I don't want to step on this. Yeah, but please, your dance floor.
Yeah, the number to call is 708-866-1737, 708-866-1737. If you're listening to us live, give us a call. Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Well, it just seems like Emery certainly does work on a lot of the things that have to do with Project Necromancer, like searching out blood samples that can withstand the transference of M-count rich blood. She's involved in that, and she works with Nala Se, so she knows what's up with Nala Se. Does Nala Se was she in the vault? Nala Se.
I got the impression that that's where her quarters are, because she's also surrounded by those shields, those ray shields.
No, that can't be, because Omega had been in that room working. So
she was in Nala Se's quarters.
Oh yeah, well, or in that lab that they work in.
Well,
remember,
in the lab,
Emery would get her out of the cell and then march her over to go assist Nala Se in whatever she was
right. But Nala Se is in a cell herself, and I assume that cell is behind those shield doors where all of the other stuff, because the only place where you see those shield doors are in the lab, the secret lab in Nala Se's quarters.
No, I don't think Nala Se is tucked away back in there. I think that's strictly for
Project Necromancer.
And in the chat, they are saying that Nala Se was in the vault. I thought so. The day the Emperor arrived, Nala Se was part of that group of people who went in there. So Nala Se knows what's up.
Oh, I didn't say Nala Se didn't know what's up. We were talking about Emery.
No, I was wondering if Nala Se.
Okay.
That was something I had asked.
Even if Nala Se knows, right? Nala Se knows.
Yeah. She has to know. She's Nala Se, for crying out loud.
There was one line that may have telegraphed where the next several episodes are going to go, and that's the Bad Batch are talking, and they're talking about intel and accurate intel being hard to come by. And they say, well, we need to know all we can before we make any moves. And when I heard that line, I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good 3 or 4 episodes of learning everything they can.
Well, it has to build up to the conclusion. We know this.
Right. Yes.
They'll give us something really good to chew on, like mid-season. I think they're doing another 3-episode drop right in the middle of the season. And I think at that point we'll get some seismic shifting in the storytelling, where hopefully it'll raise the stakes.
Right.
But I don't see the big showdown at Mount Tantiss happening until the final episode.
Yeah, and when Hunter first tells Omega that he doesn't want her going on the mission to find this Imperial terminal, she kind of appeals to Crosshair, and I think she thinks Crosshair is her fellow, for lack of a better term, rebel. Like Crosshair will get it. He's seen me in action. He knows what I can do, and Crosshair's like, hey, you're capable. You're still just a kid. So even Crosshair is starting to develop, it seems like, a sense of somewhat, if not parental, maybe guardianship attachment, I guess, to her, because otherwise you'd be like, who cares? If you just get in the way, I'll shove you off the side of the cliff. I mean, he'd be the old Crosshair had been the first to do that, but he's
they have the shared experience of being held captive in Mount Tantiss,
right?
And remember, Omega would go and talk to Crosshair in his cell. She had that ability to go in there and talk to him. So they've been developing some chemistry and a relationship for a few months now, at least. But they take Omega with them on their mission. And here's another thing where I'll get nitpicky about the storytelling. Did she earn the ability to know everything about operating an Imperial terminal in a base she's never been at before? And this is Omega. Now, I think that maybe it was her work on Mount Tantiss working with Nala Se. I mean, there's a certain standardization of all of this Imperial computer gear, it seems. It seems like everything looks like that control room from the Death Star from A New Hope with the red wall and everything. It seems like every outpost, every starship, every battle station all has a very similar work post, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe Omega, that's the only thing I could think of. But boy, she knew everything. She's like, yeah, you got to prime the generators. And it's to the right of what, she even
was
knew.
I the only one that was sweating whether or not Crosshair, or excuse me, Wrecker was going to be able to pull that off? On the right. Lefty.
Which way's right?
Righty.
Wait, my right or your right?
But yeah, no, you're right. She does show this aptitude for this, and maybe I think what you said about her experience on Mount Tantiss and her experience before on Camino, she was given a lot of liberty and freedom there. So I'm guessing that there are certain keywords and things that she probably has learned, but yeah, it was a little bit of a convenience. But we also learned in our last episode that Tech was putting her through the paces. He was teaching her a lot, all of their plans, their various plans for their missions. So it's likely that he also gave her that kind of some of that training as well.
Right.
She learned to code, Jim. That's all you got to do. You just learn to code.
Yes, IBM comes calling.
That's right. The first bit of real suspicion here between the batch. Oh no, I know what I wanted to ask you about the bird screeching. Since you just watched that episode, what do you come away with as far as what that bird screeching symbolizes? Crosshair looks at it multiple times in that episode in season 2, and he's still drawn to it in this episode.
Maybe just freedom in general,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
You could be on the ground and all this crazy crap is happening, but it doesn't mean anything to a bird or a vulture or whatever that was flying around overhead.
Yeah.
It does come into play, as you said, in season 2 in the Outpost, where after he shoots Nolan, he sees the bird again. And yes, it probably just freedom in general.
That's what I think. And breaking, like he's been in servitude his entire life, and the thing that he trusted in the most, he betrayed for what he thought at the time was this greater good. So he's been in some sort of bondage and servitude forever. And he looks up and he sees this bird, and I want to be like that bird. I don't want to have any limits on me. I want to go where I want, when I want. So, and I think this was sort of like when he was looking at the bird in this episode, it was, I am free. I remember when I was looking at that bird and I would have done anything to be free, and now I am. So it's a nice little.
Meredith in the chat says, guys, I don't like the tone already. Guy. The creators themselves had said Crosshair is the ice vulture. What does that even mean? There's absolutely no logic in that statement. I don't care who said it. I don't care if George Lucas came out of retirement and said it. Crosshair is Crosshair, and the vulture is the vulture. He's looking at it. Unless he's looking in a mirror, how is he looking at himself?
Yeah, well, maybe I don't get it. There's something that we don't know. If you got, if you've got the answer as to when they said this,
Star Wars has failed me when it comes to birds in general. The whole thing with Ahsoka and that owl. I mean, I don't understand any of the context or connection or importance of that. The Porgs basically sucked. I thought they were going to be cool. I thought the Porgs were going to be like, I thought they were going to be like these force birds or something, and like the Falcon would be going to escape, and TIE fighters would be coming down to attack, and the Porgs would like surround the Falcon like a big flock of Porgs, and the Falcon would be able to escape to safety. But the Porgs were just dumb. They were just stupid birds.
Unfortunately, Flock of Porgs will not be performing in Bristol, Connecticut with us at the Big Story. Which is a great name for a Star Wars band, I got to tell you. Flock of Porgs.
And then, I mean, the creators themselves had said Crosshair is the ice vulture. That doesn't mean anything to me or anyone. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
The creators themselves.
So the seeds of mistrust peppered throughout this episode, but the first one is, well, we actually hear about his sniper rifle being taken away and then given to him reluctantly. But as soon as they get onto this outpost, Hunter says, you said this was remote, not abandoned entirely. Like he says, well, I didn't get daily intel briefings in my cell. And then Hunter says, I get the feeling there's more to this place than you're saying. And there is. It has a great emotional importance to Crosshair. It was when he made the big decision that he was going, or it was the events on this planet that had led him to make the big decision. And so there is something emotionally going on, but Crosshair's sort of distraction by all of this is leading Hunter to believe that it could be some sort of trap, that he's actually leading them back to Imperials or something along those lines. So these two are not seeing eye to eye. And it seemed like it was going to get physical, at one point. And it's all leading, of course, to this big moment that they have later on. In the Raiders, he says, the perimeter was protected against these Raiders. And Hunter's like, oh, that's what it is. It's the Raiders. You didn't tell us about Raiders. And Crosshair says, well, they were dealt with. How do you know that? Take a guess. Yeah, well, we know he wiped them all out, and then Hunter turns it back on him, all just following orders again, right? Just wiping out innocence. First he's all concerned about the Raiders. Then when he finds out Crosshair already wiped them out and they're no longer a threat, he's like, oh, yeah, typical Crosshair. Yeah. No moral compass on this guy. So Hunter is just he's lobbing everything that he can at Crosshair.
Yeah, well, it's not easy when you betray the Bad Batch. They're not just going to hold the door wide open for you and let you just mosey back in without having to pay a little bit of a price. The Raiders were a big threat to the outpost, but we never knew anything about the snow worms that existed under the surface. Those were not revealed in the outpost. Yet at one point, Crosshair and Mayday go to inspect the tunnels underneath the surface. And now we know why those tunnels are there. Right. It's because of these snow worms. Dune is the #1 movie at the box office. So this is really appropriate timing for giant worms to reappear in Star Wars. It's like Dune, but snow, not sand.
Right.
And
and they're spelled with a Y. It's a WYRM instead of an O.
That, actually, the WYRM, it's like ancient. It goes back to Old English. And it's from fiction. It's from Beowulf, the ancient heroic poem Beowulf from like 1000 AD. And the worms, WYRM, were used in that poem and in other mythology to describe a dragon without wings. So like often serpents and things like that get called worms. But here in Star Wars, they're the snow worms is what we're dealing with. They've had giant worms in Star Wars before. In the book Splinter of the Mind's Eye, Luke and Leia encountered these giant worms. I remember in the comic book, they sort of had like a mouth like a sarlacc. And that was the first time I ever heard of them, because I didn't grow up with Dune. So so many people are talking about the Dune influences on Star Wars, which are, plentiful, but it doesn't mean Star Wars is like a new telling of Dune in any way, shape, or form. They're just elements. George Lucas also borrowed not only from Dune, but from the old Westerns, from Joseph Campbell, from pulpy science fiction, from The Lensman, from The Art of Mobius. There's lots of influences that go on with Star Wars. So just to say Star Wars, because I've seen some people, whenever something new comes out, people like a lot, and people have been loving Dune too. But all of a sudden now Star Wars needs to be Dune.
Yeah, I
And
saw
Star
some
Wars
of those
is
comments.
nothing but Star Wars is nothing but a Dune ripoff. I see these comments online.
Which is it? Is it a ripoff, or does it need to be more like it? Which is it?
Well, I think people want the storytelling to be taken in Star Wars a little more seriously by the storytellers. And so I think some people, and they said the same thing when Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films came out. And everyone was comparing those movies to the Star Wars prequels because they were being released concurrently. And it seems like, this kind of thing happens from time to time. But, Star Wars has sort of a specific vibe, and it's kind of a melting pot of all different things. So to say you want it to be one thing, then it might be betraying what Star Wars actually is. So
yeah. I think about how there was a lot of talk when the Daniel Craig
Dean
era.
Dean in the chat just wrote Cara Dune. I was like, no, not that Dune.
Another Dune. When the Daniel Craig films were certainly at the very beginning with Casino Royale, and then some of the later ones. Casino Royale, I believe, is a fantastic movie. But I remember people saying, well, Bond needs to be more like Jason Bourne. That's what Bond should be in the modern era. And what they do, they chased the Jason Bourne thing, and they kind of, I think, beat it into the ground and sort of lost James Bond. They lost the character, in my opinion, of James Bond by the end of that era. So you do have to be careful. You can't always just chase the latest and greatest thing and try to make it part of your thing. You got to do what makes your thing special and great and unique.
I think in modern day Star Wars too, that guys like Filoni, etc., they chase George Lucas's influences too much, as opposed to taking the foundation Lucas created for Star Wars and building upon that. They spend too much time chasing the things that influenced George Lucas. And I think that makes Star Wars a little confusing, because George didn't flat out just, say, all right, well, Star Wars is going to be like a samurai film and just stick with that. He took a bunch of things and threw them in a pot and mixed it up, but still came out with something that was original. And I think the original vibe of Star Wars needs to be built upon, as opposed to constantly chasing the things that influenced George Lucas.
Yeah, I agree that if you're going to, Star Wars it's a soup of lots of different things. And if you get a little too much garlic, if you get a little too much salt or whatever it is, it's going to change the taste. And I think George, those elements all fuse together to make something unique. If you focus too much on one particular thing, be it Western, be it samurai, as you were saying, then I think you do it just becomes a Star Wars, lightly diluted Star Wars samurai or Western. So you have to be careful. And I do think that they are trying a lot of different things. I like that they're trying different things. And I do like that they're at least staying in the ballpark, in the foundation of what George came up with. But as we know, we've talked to a lot of people over the years, Star Wars is not the easiest thing to write. It's not the easiest thing not the easiest stories to tell, because you're always holding it up against some of the most foundational moments in people's pop culture lives. I mean, it's a very, very tall order. There are some cool things that I wanted to mention. Some of the dialogue that I really, really liked between Hunter and Crosshair. Here's a picture we're putting up on the screen of Crosshair in his season 1 uniform, his season 1 armor. He's the only Bad Batcher still wearing that same look. They've all sort of evolved over the years into something different. It still fits. I thought there might be a little quip about whether or not it fits, but Wrecker's the one that gives him his rifle. Now Wrecker's the one that's giving him back his armor. Wrecker seems to be the one that's really kind of really welcoming him in and just saying, okay, you're back. Everything's like it was. Here's your gun. Here's your armor. And I was surprised that, to be honest with you, I thought that there would be a little bit more of a gap between when he got the armor and when he put it on. He puts it on right away. So there wasn't a whole lot of hesitation. But then again, he needed the armor because he's walking around, just basically wearing, just cloth clothing, and he's about to go into battle. But it was cool. It was a cool moment seeing him come down the ramp as old Crosshair.
Yeah, and didn't they say something about it still fitting, or
did they? Maybe that went by me.
Yeah, I think right when he appeared, I think Wrecker seemed very enthusiastic about seeing Crosshair wearing that armor once again. And I noticed at the beginning of the episode, Hunter and Wrecker were not wearing armor at all. They were wearing what the audio description track referred to as light off-duty clothes.
Oh,
so have they ever?
Is that like sort of office casual, light duty?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna say that next time I'm talking to my team at the day job. I'm gonna say just light duty clothes.
Off-duty clothes.
Off-duty clothes.
Yeah, it's off-duty. They were very specific about off-duty. But yeah, that just surprised me because I thought clone troopers, for the most part, always wore their armor. Now we see the clones on Camino walking around in those gray jumpsuits, but that was before they were fully commissioned as soldiers. So I thought it would be uncomfortable for a clone trooper to walk around without the armor. But look at here, light off-duty clothes.
There it is.
It's like, next week Wrecker's going to be kicked back in a Jethro Tull t-shirt wearing sweatpants laying on the sofa. That's my idea of light off-duty.
I can see that actually. So Hunter gets in a pretty sick burn here on Crosshair when he asks, so why'd the Empire abandon this place? And Crosshair says, I guess it served its purpose, talking about this old base. And then Hunter says, sounds familiar. Like, yeah, something that served, like you've already served your purpose. You brought the kid back to us. Now get out of here. You're done. And so he's really throwing the gauntlet down right there, that he doesn't see any new purpose for Crosshair, certainly not with the Bad Batch.
Yeah, big parallels. Yeah.
The other thing that was, I think, a pretty big reveal was as they were looking at the data pad, they determined that there are even more clone troopers on Tantiss than we thought. And you've got Omega's perspective. She had a little bit more freedom than Crosshair's perspective, and they're all surprised. So that makes me wonder, like, what are we going to find, Jim, at some point in this Mount Tantiss? We're just going to find, I think, just cell block after cell block after cell block, because we know that all the clones were disappearing. That was one of the subplots, was they were just disappearing. Yeah. Where are they going? Well, now we know they're literally all going to Mount Tantiss.
Yes.
And they're all prisoners. It's a pretty horrible thing. This is
not
actually
only
genocide.
Not only prisoners, but test subjects.
Yes.
For Dr. Hemlock's experimentations. I'd rather, just be put out of my misery than have to go through all that. But you're right. I mean, that's why I'm thinking if they can liberate the clones in Mount Tantiss, that battle alone will be the Clone War Part 2, the Clone War 2. So, the visual image you painted in my mind was with just aisle after aisle, row after row of all these cells inside that giant mountain.
With emaciated clones. Yeah. that has been pricked and poked and prodded and all of that. It could get pretty dark before it's all said and done. We do have some super chats coming in. When I grab those, thank you all very much for that. Start with Majin Brinhanbu. I know that some of you trying to put something dirty in these handles. I'm not saying that Majin is, but so yeah, it's gonna happen. You're gonna mose me, Bart Simpson me, whatever. It's gonna happen. It already happened on an episode before, so hope you're all proud of yourself. Hello from the Shire, Hobbiton, New Zealand. Usually miss the live shows, but happy to catch it today. Love the Bad Batch so far. May the force be with you. Well, thanks, and glad that you were able to make it. That's fantastic. Yes. All the way from New Zealand. So that easy. Omega sounds like her neighbor. There's nothing exotic about Omega to her. Our pal Eric from Phoenix says, can't stick around. Love the little brother comment from Omega. Great episode again. No filler, he says. Have a great time. Thanks, Eric. I wouldn't say that this was completely filler because as we were talking about earlier, Jim, the Sid missions where they were just trying to get their coffers up, but then there would be episode after episode after episode before you'd ever even hear anything about how close they are to their goal of paying off Sid and things like that. That's filler when it just doesn't tie back in at all. This does tie back in, and we also know, as we mentioned, that they're trying to get as much intel as they can before they go to Mount Tantiss. So, well,
it feels like it's ramping up. And those missions for Sid never felt like they were ramping up to anything. And we were grateful when there would be an occasional episode away from the Bad Batch where it would just be about Crosshair. Because he would give us, his episodes would give us more of an indication as to what the big plan is for the Empire.
Yeah, right. Here's Garage Gym Life. Garage Gym Life says, on the treadmill, of course he is. Of course he's got on the treadmill. On the treadmill, but had to say this. I called it. Omega is older than the Bad Batch, thus making the Bad Batch child soldiers dealing with wartime trauma. That's why they latched on to Sid as a substitute authority figure. I don't like thinking of them as children, though, Garage Gym Life.
And I think the way that they were programmed both with the chip and during their education time on Kamino was up to speed with their double aging. So I think mentally they are the equivalent of 20-something-year-olds or 30-something-year-olds. They've just aged at double time.
Yeah.
But yet their ability to comprehend, their ability to process information, I believe, is as mature as the age that they're supposed to be, regardless of double aging or not.
The other thing you have to keep in mind, everyone has to keep in mind, is that, yes, there's double aging going on, but these guys have been at war for years, and now they're on the run. That stuff ages a person. So there's everything that they're going through, too. So, but yes, technically, Omega came out of the test tube before the Bad Batchers. That is true. You are right. Garage Gym Life.
But
thanks for the super chat.
She's still a child.
Right.
And can only comprehend things to a certain degree based on her development. These clone troopers, the Bad Batch and all the clone troopers, are fully developed adults.
Yeah.
By the time of the Clone Wars. So yeah, and I think they have the mental capacity to parallel that.
Salby Crum, another regular here on the Bad Batch After Show, says, feeling that clones versus stormtroopers is coming soon to Tantiss. The Empire flourishes for what, a decade after this? Can't imagine all the Bad Batch survive. Maybe they just destroy whatever cloning progress has been made so far. Yeah, I think it's becoming more and more a reality of this big showdown. I just hope that we don't hope it's not like George handled the Clone Wars, right? Where you get just the beginning of it, and then we get one of those famous Dave Filoni animation, flash forward. 10 years later, and then do some sort of poignant thing. I want to see it. I want to see the second Clone War. You gave us one Clone Wars, give us another one.
Yeah, I think if you utilize all of the elements at your fingertips as a storyteller, you got to go there.
Yeah.
Because then you can show the mass genocide of the clone troopers. We know that the Imperials will be victorious, but where are those clone troopers? It's so wild to think that, back in 2002 when Attack of the Clones premiered and we got introduced to clone troopers, it was only natural to think these guys develop into the stormtroopers. And it's a straight line.
Right.
Little did we know that the clone troopers would be deemed unnecessary by the end of the war, yet the Empire still had a need and a desire to have at their disposal an army of soldiers in white plastic.
Yeah.
So you decide, hey, the clone troopers are there, just use them. It is that double aging thing, though, that creates an issue. So you could have kept the facilities at Camino working nonstop around the clock to keep up with the growing Empire and their need for stormtroopers, or you can turn it over to, things like enlistment and tap into the population. And by doing so, you actually generate loyalty out of the population of the galaxy.
Right. Because their sons and daughters are now on the front lines. Yeah.
Everyone knows a stormtrooper.
They've got skin in the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's head over to the phones. It is a call-in show, 708-866-1737. We've got several locked up here in the switchboard. Let's go with Patreon's first, folks. Patreon's first. Let's start with Marty from Georgia. Marty, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Thanks for waiting. Hello.
Hey, chut, fellas.
Chut.
Great episode. I think, honestly, this is the episode that solidified Crosshair as my favorite member of the Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah?
I think
why is that?
As a fellow sarcastic person, I can really appreciate his sense of humor, first of all. But then it's just kind of the whole redemption that he seems to be going through and how he's wrestling with some stuff from the past, both we see and I'm assuming some stuff we don't see. And I just love a good redemption story. And especially in Star Wars, when Darth Vader throws the Emperor down the reactor shaft, that's one of my favorite moments. So I'm a sucker for a good redemption story, and seeing Crosshair go through it right now is really, really interesting to me, and I'm enjoying it greatly. So,
I'm with you, Marty. I love a good redemption story too, because it makes us all feel that, my gosh, if a guy like Crosshair can find redemption, so can I. It gives us all hope.
Absolutely, and that's really why I love the episode. It's just there's so many great moments of just this guy's really just trying to do right, and that just resonated with me on a personal level. So really enjoyed the episode, and cool to go back to the Outpost as well. That I was talking about Tyler. I know that was one of his favorite Star Wars moments from last year, and great episode. I got to go back and rewatch it now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the great benefits of Disney Plus and streaming. I'm a physical media guy, but the streaming, the convenience of being able to just go pop right back to that episode, which Mac did. I know a lot of you did right after you watched this one. Boom, a couple of clicks, and there you are. Mm-hmm. Marty, thanks for the call, and thanks so much for being a Patreon supporter. Very, very much appreciated here.
Marty,
he's gone.
Did you hang up on?
I hung
Swank,
up on Marty.
Stop doing that. You got to let me say my final thoughts to the people. I was just gonna.
Well, let me read your mind. I'll let me keep sending that telepathy my way. He can still hear you.
Yeah, I'm gonna send the telepathy right up your butt. Okay, next call.
Wait, what happened? Where'd Mac go? Wait, no one can see him. No one can hear him. All right, we got Blake's take. Blake's on. Hey, Blake.
Hey,
Blake.
Chut, buddy.
Chut, Blake.
You need to get in between me and Mac. Come on.
until Swank hangs up on you.
Break this up.
Yeah.
What you got this week, buddy?
So basically, I was thinking about my theory from last week and how this connects, like how this can be. I think we're gonna have like a couple more episodes like this, and then that's gonna lead up to our big finale kind of thing, because they're slowly gonna get intel, and then it's gonna hit. Like I'm saying that the 2 episodes we have at the end, that's gonna be like basically like a 2-parter.
Okay.
Yeah, typically they do build the seasons like that, with a solid 2-part season finale that just feeds off of the previous episode. So I see what Blake is saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, where do you think the action is going to end up in that final episode, Blake? What do you think is going to happen in that final episode?
I feel like after this episode, or maybe after like maybe another one or maybe 2 more, they're gonna go back to the one planet where they dropped off those kids. I can never remember the name of it.
Pabu.
Yeah, Pabu. They're gonna go there, and that's when the Empire is gonna find them. So I'm saying, at one of the places they're gonna go to, they're somehow gonna track the Bad Batch back to Pabu, and then they're gonna fight, and the Empire's gonna destroy Pabu. The Bad Batch will barely escape, get out of there, and then they're gonna go to the facility and try to break out those clones. And while they're trying to break out the clones, they're gonna find Tech, because Tech is not dead. It's like,
well,
I don't think he's dead at all.
I think the longer they go without bringing him back, the more I think he's really dead. I'm not saying he's dead. I'm just saying the longer they go, the more I'm thinking it. Because they gotta. I mean, how long? Then I guess they try to find a way to reference him. I guess in most episodes, they're very quick passing references. I just think the audience is going to move on. I've moved on. I barely miss him.
He's stunned. Blake is stunned.
I swear I didn't hang up on him.
Yeah.
No. Like basically for me, there's like a delay. So I was.
There is a delay. The delay is real.
Yeah.
That is true. All right, Blake.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I was gonna say that while they're there trying to get out all those clones and everything, I think that's when Omega's gonna get captured again, and they might take a couple shuttles with them or something. Rex is gonna be with them. Probably some more of the clones, like the ones we saw in Rebels with Rex, but they'll probably help in on this whole get all these clones out of the facility. But something's gonna go wrong. Like, there's no way they'll make it out without like having someone lost or someone dying or anything like that. They ain't make. There'll be a loss, but it'll also help them get everyone else out. But it's gonna be one of the batch. Something's gonna happen to one of them.
It's gonna be Crosshair. It's gonna be Crosshair,
of course.
Or if they've got the stones, it'll be Hunter, because Hunter is the most important batcher to Omega. And wouldn't it be interesting if Crosshair sort of takes Hunter's place as?
Yeah.
That would be a big move. That would be a big move. Yeah. I think the obvious answer is Crosshair, and maybe he'll even sacrifice himself to bring Tech back. Could be.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the batch leading a raid on Mount Tantiss, and they're able to liberate a lot of clone troopers in there, and they consider their mission to be a success, and they're laying on the beaches of Pabu. and you think the credits are just about ready to roll when all of a sudden here comes Darth Vader and a Star Destroyer up overhead in the atmosphere, and they start opening fire. That's gonna happen.
If that happens, that's gonna be one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there relaxing on Pabu, and then you just hear the Imperial March start playing. Star Destroyers coming from the sky, TIE fighters raining down on the city.
Wreckers on a surfboard down there.
Right.
Trying to go.
And Vader flies in his TIE fighter. This is the first TIE fighter we ever see, too. It's Vader's TIE fighter, and he comes shooting out of the Star Destroyer. He lands on Pabu, and with lightsaber in hand, confronts the Bad Batch. All of them. And you know who's walking away victorious from that battle? I would love that.
Oh, yeah. Vader.
Watch him behead Omega.
Oh.
Now Blake's really getting excited. I'm starting to wonder about you, Blake. All right, man. Well, we know your bedtime is 10:30, so we gotta let you go. But thanks as always for giving us a call.
To, answer Jimmy's question from last week.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, okay, good.
Is that after I hung up on you?
Yeah.
Okay.
See.
You were asking me a question. Well, before I left. Well, when I did leave, you asked a question about if I like to write like stories and stuff.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, with that I actually do. We had to do a work in school. We had to write about anything we wanted, but we had to make a story. You can make it into a TV show or something. And I made mine about like Darth Vader this way. And everything like that. I had a whole story about. It's like in between. I had it set in. I think it was in between. I think it was Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get everything ready.
And real briefly, what is the story about Darth Vader? What is it all about?
Well, we only had to do one episode. I wanted to continue, but we had other work to do and everything. But my first episode, they're basically on the Super Star Destroyer. He goes to Endor because he's trying to get a Sith holocron, this way he can learn more about the Sith and get more power. And so he goes there, and there's like a couple Jedis who are on Endor, and he fights them, and he has a whole like army of stormtroopers there with him. And then there's like a message to all clone troopers from Obi-Wan on like a holocron, and it says, stay away from like all clones. Order 66 has happened to all the Jedi, and I thought it was good when I wrote it. I got an A on it.
Well, that's good.
Nice.
That's good. All right.
Nice. Well, I think writing is something you should pursue. I think you have a really strong grasp of how all the elements tie together to make a good story. So if anything, I'm going to encourage you to continue writing and write about anything, especially write about the things you know. So it doesn't always have to be a school assignment either. Just scribble down things in books, good ideas you have.
Send it our way. We'll make sure that FJ gets it. You know, he's a writer, and he can write up a whole bunch of notes, tell you where you went wrong, and send it right back to you. How's that sound? I think FJ would love that.
It could be a valuable resource for sure. Yeah.
All right, buddy. Yeah. Well, we're going to move on, but
Blake.
thanks for talking. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Some more.
I just got
chats.
to thinking, we haven't seen a single TIE fighter in the Bad Batch yet. We've seen V-Wings, but we've not seen any TIE fighters. I would like to see maybe the debut of the TIE fighter happen here in the Bad Batch. And I definitely want to see Darth Vader before this thing is all said and done.
Yeah, you would have thought if they had ties, they would have had him flanking Palpatine's shuttle when he came into Mount Tantiss, but nope.
V-Wings.
Yep.
Only V-Wings.
Just the V's. Turtle Wars says, I think it's a real bummer that we didn't get a diversity of 3 3/4 inch Bad Batch figures released with each season. Each season, I would take just season one. They only put out one figure there's just a Hunter. Yeah, and it's a great figure too.
Yeah, I mean I mean you have a Nala Se figure that was previously existing. You have a Gonki, but I mean, and then you have Hunter, and that's the extent really of your Bad Batch action figure. They made a 4-pack, which was just a bunch of clones and a retooled Captain Rex.
Yeah,
but
there were no Bad Batchers in that.
Those aren't really legitimate.
We got
releases.
them all in the Black
characters.
Series. We got all of them in the Black Series, and I think they're even. I think they've revealed some of the newer looks. There's a new Omega coming, I know for sure, but
still nothing for the 3
3/4 inch. Ferris 84 says, "I believe tremor equals physical manifestation of guilt plus mental health state plus has to pay for his sins. Taking away his skill is the price he pays." I like the idea of this is him losing what makes him, in his mind, in the minds of others, of value. He's got to find another talent. The problem is it's just too much. There needs to be, for this type of storytelling, there needs to be one simple explanation for why he has this condition, and we haven't heard it.
I don't think it's a bad thing that they've inflicted Crosshair with a disability that now is affecting the thing he does best. I think that's great for dramatic purposes. But I want to know how. I want to know why. I'm tired of the just because storytelling that goes on. It's a pain in the ass.
Just because. Finally, these two, after a lot of build-up, they finally have their moment where Crosshair comes clean and says why it is. What Hunter asks, what happened, Crosshair? Tell me what changed. And he says, I killed an Imperial officer. So, yes, I did betray them. Because Hunter was saying, oh, you just betrayed the Empire like you betrayed us. You just betray everybody. That's your thing. You know, you're a Benedict Arnold. Yes. And then, but he says, but don't pretend that this is all about me. This is where it got real powerful here at the end. He says, I tried to warn you, Hunter. I risked everything to send you that message. You ignored it. You let Omega be taken to Tantiss. She went through what she did because you failed, and now you're angry because she escaped with my help, not yours. After all those little pot shots that Hunter is taking at or giving to Crosshair, Crosshair finally has a mic drop moment right there. Boom. Boom.
He sure does. And, you know, it's all there. He sent out that communication to the Bad Batch. Plan 88, I believe is what he said. And they ignored him because they thought it was a trap. And I mean, that's fair for them to be skeptical of all of a sudden good old Crosshair reaching out after what you pulled. No, I believe the Bad Batch were being prudent with their skepticism about something like that. But Crosshair he tried. Now, the big difference is Crosshair betraying the Bad Batch is so different than Crosshair betraying the Empire. Crosshair betrayed the Bad Batch because he thought he was being a good soldier and he was following orders. He was doing it in the line of duty, in the name of duty. Crosshair killing that Imperial officer was motivated by his moral center, where he knew this just isn't right. And a price has to be paid for allowing one of his brothers, Mayday, to die due to the wounds.
So needlessly die.
So needlessly, because they had the medical assistance available.
Yeah.
But Nolan wanted to send a message that all clones are expendable. They're nothing but property to the Empire. Who cares if they die? And that was too much for Crosshair to handle. It affected his moral center, and he acted upon it. It wasn't just following orders anymore. He wasn't just doing what Well, he was doing what he thought was right, but I mean, based on his own values and not the values of a tyrannical empire or even just a commanding officer in general. So there's a big difference there. And he showed regret for what he did in the name of the empire when he was talking to Hunter at the end of this episode. That shows, that shows a lot of regret on his part, and that he wants to fix the mistakes that went wrong. So when he killed that Imperial officer, that wasn't to fix the mistakes he made with the Bad Batch. That was because his own morality demanded it.
Yeah, his betrayal of the Bad Batch was almost instinctual. It was
yes.
He it's not like you ever saw him pondering anything. The
no,
murder
and also
of
from
Nolan,
his perspective, he could look at it like the Bad Batch betrayed him.
That's right. In my view, the Jedi are evil. Right? From a certain point of view.
You were saying something, and I jumped in.
No, I was just saying that it was an instinctual move to stay with the Empire, whereas when he killed Nolan, it was, you saw the hesitation, you saw the thinking, you saw him actually acting, as you say, out of his moral compass. By the way, Wrecker channels all of us, I think, in that moment when he says, Why is there always a huge monster? Because I was just wondering the same thing, Wreck.
Hey, listen, in the tradition of Star Wars storytelling, monsters have a very important place. Monstrous beasts.
Yeah.
They've been there since the beginning, from the Dianoga to the asteroid slug to the dragon serpent that sucks R2 underneath the waters of Dagobah, to the Sarlacc pit.
The Wampa.
There's always it's the Wampa. It's a creature feature. Star Wars is a creature feature. When they ignore that, they're missing an important element of the storytelling. And so I'm always happy to see big nasty creatures attacking our heroes in Star Wars.
Well, they have two options. They can either make it a creature or they can make it Imperials. That's pretty much what they got when they need to show some sort of conflict. Where is it going to come from? From the environment?
Well, no, they got pirates. They got
they got pirates, yeah, and occasional raiders.
Raiders, marauders.
Tanya says she's really impressed with the sophisticated storytelling this season. Can't wait for the inevitable rescue, one last mission, of the clone prisoners. Cheers, RFR and chat crew, and clinking glasses. Thank you, Tanya. Another one who's here supporting us each and every week. Mac is raising a glass. I'll raise a can. Dave Fieldson says, love the after shows. Will Alpha meet Omega in the final season of The Bad Batch? If not, wasted opportunity, he says. Alpha, and we know who Alpha is. Alpha is Boba Fett. I have a theory, Jim. I have a theory that we're going to see Boba Fett, and I'll tell you why. I think Daniel Logan being brought back in to play whatever his name was, Mox, telegraphs that they didn't just bring him in when they had that other dude there. They had that other guy who played Stack and Deke could have done the voice of Mox, but he didn't. Logan was there for a reason, and that reason is a lot bigger than Mox. He was there voicing Boba Fett. So
I certainly hope so.
That's my prediction.
Yeah, I would love to see Boba Fett return, and definitely a meeting of Boba and Omega could, sparks might fly. Would that be weird? Since they're both clones? Would that be weird?
Yeah, that would be weird.
I mean, they call each other brother, but, there weren't any sisters around. So, all of a sudden, sister might... Well,
I think it's fine as long as they don't have babies. Then I think there might be a problem.
I don't think they can reproduce.
Palpatine did. Or did he? Palpatine's clone. See, that's why I don't buy that whole Rey is the biological child of a Palpatine clone. I'm not buying it. Because I think you're right. I think clones are sterile. In fact, I think in the real world, clones are sterile. I'm not an expert, but maybe David from Georgia is an expert. David's been waiting on the line. Hey, David.
He just so happens to be.
Joining us now is Dr. David from Georgia. Chut.
Hey, guys. Just quick couple thoughts. So Hemlock, we've been talking about the vault, and I was thinking, Hemlock's kind of like the Frankenstein of the Star Wars universe. Is it possible if he worked on the Vader project after Vader's fall on Mustafar, could he possibly have clones of Anakin in that vault? Could we be leading, like Jimmy mentioned, the Emperor has said that the best that the Empire had was at his disposal. So who do you send to solve all your problems? Vader. So if Vader shows up on Tantiss, and possibly there might be a big showdown and reveal that there's a clone of Anakin because he lost so much, right? He thought Anakin was a prime specimen. And then, Obi-Wan did so much damage to him on Mustafar.
That takes it in a
why
direction.
Why not try to recreate what you lost?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I like that. I like your approach to all of this. That's very outside the box. Yeah. And I think it's something that Anakin / Darth Vader would not be cool with. I can tell you that. If he stumbled across that, Anakin is dead to him for all intents and purposes. And then he sees an Anakin in a tank.
Well, then if I'm Anakin, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. What, all I have to learn is how to possess this clone body, and now I'm no longer in an iron lung? That sucks. I've been stumbling around like Frankenstein's monster, as David was alluding to, and all I got to do is just figure out how to do this. That is interesting, and I will say, as far-fetched as the clone Anakin thing is, though, I wouldn't be mad about it. I do think that line that Palpatine says to Hemlock about having all of the resources of the Empire, I think you're right. That could have foreshadowed Vader.
Or it could have been Vader blood being added to those vials in the centrifuge when they were testing them.
Vader's blood.
Because he has the highest midichlorian count of all time, according to the Jedi.
Yeah, why would it be Palpatine's blood? We kind of were assuming that it was Palpatine's blood, but you're right. I'm sure he has a high M count, but not the highest.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't know because the Jedi never tested.
I was wondering at which point, would Vader begin? Because in Empire, he tells Luke, we can overtake the Emperor and rule the galaxy as father and son. So at what point does Vader begin to piece together that he's going to be replaced, or that the Emperor has ulterior motives? So I don't know if maybe there's a big discovery on Tantiss, and that kind of puts in motion what Vader's plans.
Well, that assumes that Vader. Oh, that's a good one. That could be a whole show, is about when does Vader's trust fall? When does it erode his trust of Palpatine? I'm not convinced that it was ever fully there. I think that he made the choice he did because of his desperation in trying to keep Padme alive.
Right.
It's likely that Palpatine was seeding those dreams that he was having, those premonitions about Padme dying, possibly. And then he all of a sudden, Palpatine is always the solution, or always has the solution for the problems that he creates for other people. Oh, hey, are these systems giving you a problem? Well, I happen to have this clone army that you can use, and all of these executive orders that give me unlimited power. Your girlfriend, you have dreams of your girlfriend dying? Well, guess what? I know how to keep her alive forever. So, but this, how loyal is Anakin / Vader to Palpatine, and when does that begin to erode? That's a really interesting question. I would love to noodle on that some more and think about it.
The nature of the relationship between a Sith master and apprentice always leads to distrust, and then killing your master in his sleep, or however you want to do it. And maybe just Palpatine and Vader were just simply that far along in the relationship when it was time for Vader to start thinking about wiping his master out.
The honeymoon
And of
was
course,
over.
Anakin does say to Padme, he reveals his ambitions in Revenge of the Sith when they're on that landing platform on Mustafar, when he says, yeah, we can rule the galaxy together. He's totally, and at this point, he's already pledged himself to the Sith.
Right.
Go ahead,
I think we're
David.
going to have clear arcs. So we're going to have the bounty hunter arc. I think, we're going to see Cad Bane. We're going to see Fennec Shand, hopefully Boba Fett. And then the final, they won't be successful in their mission. Maybe Boba comes to a realization, but then we see the Vader arc towards the end of the season. I'm hoping for that conflict on Tantiss come to a head there. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Asajj Ventress is in the mix somehow. Will it be revealed she is a clone? I mean, who knows? Who knows?
They did
Ventress
promise that they wouldn't be violating the continuity of that novel. They would go along with.
What I'm
so
thinking.
Yeah, clone possibly.
That's what I'm thinking. A clone or a flashback or something, but probably more likely a clone. Maybe she's the one who was in the vat that Palpatine was looking at in the Project Necromancer lab. Maybe it was Asajj.
Yeah. Oh, Chamber of Horrors going on there. That's for sure. Well, David, thanks very much for the call, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, we got one more caller here. This is a first-timer giving us a call all the way from California. I think this is Adam. Hey, Adam, you're on with Rebel Force Radio.
Chut-chut.
Chut-chut. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. I was just wanting to call in, not necessarily a question or anything, just talking about the outstanding animation the Bad Batch has been producing, not just this season, but last season as well. And I don't know, it's just over the years, the quality of animation that Lucasfilm has produced has always been outstanding. So I feel like, just going from one project to another, they're almost like stepping it up another level. I feel like the newest step up has been ever since Tales of the Jedi, and just the wonderful animation in that. I was watching the episode today, and someone came in, they're like, "Oh, I couldn't tell whether that was photo real or not." And like you were saying on the last episode, I think it was on Tau, or is it Pal? The planet.
Oh, from last week? Lao.
Yeah, last week.
Lao.
How?
Way to go, Swank.
Lao. Yeah.
Lao. Yeah, like you were just saying, the breathing, or the tears in their eyes, just the outstanding animation. Yeah, I was just impressed with this film, and
it is to the point where I really don't necessarily want to see animated Star Wars told in any other form of animation or style. Yeah. It's Star Wars animation to me. And I think that's one of the reasons, as great as some of the stories were in Rebels, it just didn't have the same impact. And let's face it, I mean, yes, it looked great in terms of what they were going for, but they were instructed to do that on the cheap. That was Disney coming in saying, we know how to do animation. We're Disney. We're not going to be paying for these expensive studios out in Singapore or wherever they were doing there. Come on, we're Disney. We know how to do it.
When the Clone Wars got originally canceled after season 5, when the Disney Corporation took over, it was largely because of a cost per episode basis that it was just, their budget was just crazy. George Lucas didn't care about budgets.
Right.
He was more interested in innovation. And so the budget didn't matter to him, but it certainly does to the bean counters in California working at the Walt Disney Corporation. So that, along with an anti-prequel era bias that the Disney company had when they first took over Star Wars, that was before they realized what a cash cow Ahsoka and the Clone Wars was. Once they realized it was so popular, then they did an about face. It took them too long to recognize that, as far as I'm concerned. But that's primarily the reason, was the budget.
Yeah, I would love to see, and I'm sure that others have done it, fan made stuff, but I would love to see someone do a take on what some of the classic trilogy characters might look like in that animation style.
Yeah. We saw a remake of the Duel of the Fates from Revenge of the Sith, the Mustafar duel, done by a fan in Clone Wars style. You can find that on YouTube. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what else you got to say, Adam?
I love their animation with the guy. Sorry, what?
I said, what else you got?
Oh, I was just like, I just kind of want to bounce off what you said about, the innovation of, George Lucas not always caring, about the cheapest way. Like, I was just thinking about Attack the Clones, when he was really pushing the digital on that film, right? Not just digital filming, digital projectors and theaters, right? Everything digital Yoda. It's the smartness and genius, I guess, of the guy is just outstanding. And I feel like his legacy can still live on through things like, Bad Batch. And I think that Bad Batch should be, the primary animation style, something like Resistance, just it failed, right? Nobody remembers Resistance. It's not the Clone Wars, neither was Rebels, though Rebels had a fairly big impact. But yeah, that's all I want to say. And I want to say, Jimmy Mac, I laugh every time you try to say Cal Kestis now, and I root for you whenever you say it successfully.
Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis.
There you go.
You just reminded me, when this stream is over, I'm going to jump back into Jedi Survivor. Before I reach the 1 year mark of playing, I got to beat this game. I mean, come on. So,
yeah.
Yes, Cal Kestis, Mr. Genius.
What did you say? Kyle Kestis?
I call him Ketzes. Yeah. My dad used to call ketchup catsup. Whatever. I let him do it. Let me call him Ketzis if I want to.
Sure, go
He's
ahead.
the catsup of Star Wars. Catsup.
All right, Adam. Thanks a lot, buddy.
That
Call
is
back
old
again.
school.
Appreciate it. All right. I think we are done. Thanks for all the super chats and all the great phone calls, everybody. What a jam-packed Bad Batch after show this was. They do sort of hug and make up. Kind of left that part out. They do. Well, Wrecker hugs them both, kind of clinks them both together. And Echo says, see, they always work it out. And I don't even see any blood this time. That is progress. But we still don't know the coordinates of Tantiss, so tune in next week to see the further adventures of the Bad Batch. Do want to also thank our buddy, our wonderful call screener, Tyler Page. Tyler, thank you so much for being here and setting us up with all those great calls. Appreciate it. Out of curiosity, you had told me that you watched the episode more than once today. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that jumped out at you that we or our callers did not get to?
I struggle with answering that question every week, but I feel like this episode and the Outpost are two stanzas of the same poem, and they're rhyming together the entire time. You have Crosshair escaping the tunnel with Mayday dying, and then you have Crosshair rescuing Hunter from the tunnel, and Hunter obviously surviving, and then seemingly almost in the same place where Crosshair kills the lieutenant, he tells Hunter, I killed an officer, in the same spot. Almost.
Yeah, right.
Like, it was just so poetic, and I love this episode. Marty mentioned it earlier, I love the Outpost. So, I don't know, I really love this one. If this is what the filler looks like in the Bad Batch, I'm cool with that. I'm cool
this is
that,
nice, creamy filler. This isn't like the jelly filler or whatever it was. I'm not a jelly guy that we got in previous seasons. Yeah, this is tasty, double stuffed Oreo filler, I thought. If this is filler, I agree. Well, thanks, man. Always a pleasure to have you with us, and really, really appreciate your help.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Love it every week.
And just so you know, everybody loves the beard. The ladies, especially on the chat, just love the beard.
I take care of it. So,
yeah,
you know.
No, it's clear. I mean, the beard hygiene is just incredible. You could eat off that thing. In fact, you probably do, because you probably drop stuff on there from time
all
to
the
time.
time.
All right.
All the time.
All right, buddy. Thanks a
ya.
lot. We'll see you next week. We'll see you all next week. But first, we got to get Jimmy Mac's final thoughts.
All right, Jason, final thoughts on episode 4 of season 3, The Bad Batch, The Return. Hey, it was nice to see the droid AZ, who was Omega's pal on Kamino. He's been there since season 1. He's back for season 3, holding up fruit for Crosshair shooting practice, his training. That's nice. Oh, something I didn't notice until... And the reason I don't notice this stuff is because the damn Disney Plus makes it almost impossible to see the cast listing at the end because it shrinks down the screen. And every time I try to bring the screen back up, it starts the episode over again. And it's like Groundhog Day. I wish they wouldn't shrink the screen like that until they get into the more mundane credits, like the ones that are in there week after week after week. Like the never-ending list of animators, all that stuff. I want to see the cast. So they got to quit shrinking the screen so fast. But I noticed, finally, I was able to get it to work. And I noticed D. Bradley Baker is the voice of Badger. And of course, that makes all the sense in the world because D can pull absolutely inhuman sounds out of his vocal cords and the deep recesses of his skull. I don't know. I always joke that D has like an empty cavity somewhere in his skull that acts as a sort of echo chamber for all the crazy noises he can make. But yeah, D's the voice of not only all the clones, but he's the voice of Badger as well. To go back to what Tyler was saying, stanzas of the same poem. When you take The Return from season 3 and compare it to The Crossing from The Outpost from season 2, stanzas of the same poem. Crosshair shows respect to the troopers who once occupied the base, but then they since passed away, died in battle, by making a little shrine to them on top of the crate by placing their helmets there. It's the exact same. It's a callback to what Mayday did in The Outpost. So I thought that was nice. More stanzas of the same poem. And I like that. Other than that, this week I learned Jason prefers cream over jelly filling when it comes to his donuts. And Puff a Pig, not in this episode.
Well, a lot of great stuff was in the episode. Yeah, a little housekeeping. Next week, there is a double feature, which means we'll be doing the Bad Batch After Show on Thursday. So more than one episode means we need a little bit more time to get to it all. So we will be coming at you live Thursday night, 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time. That also means that there will be no regular RFR podcast that week. So Thursday night, live RFR.
I had no idea we were already on top.
This seemed unreal, doesn't it?
Another multiple episode week.
According to Turtle Wars, so we can fact check Turtle Wars, but he brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, 2 episodes next week, so Thursday night after show.
I'm looking here, and I do see, yes, episode 6 and 7 will be debuting next week. So yeah, it's going to be a Bad Batch double feature coming at you on Thursday.
Looking forward to it. Rebel Force Radio, the flagship podcast, the weekly show, will be coming at you this Saturday. So we'll have a new episode of that will drop. And we'll be back next week with a big double feature on Thursday. 2 episodes. Looking forward to it. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for making this show so fun for all of us. It really does. It more than doubles the excitement and the fun each and every week of having new Star Wars, is knowing that we're all going to get together and chat like this. So if you want more Rebel Force Radio in your life, we've got the official website. We also have lots of exclusive podcasts available on Patreon. We have a big special event coming up on May the 4th. So if you're going to be in the Bristol, Connecticut area, and there's a lot of cities that are within a drive of Bristol, Connecticut, so check it out. We're going to be there May the 4th. All the details at rebelforceradio.com. Until next week, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.